Honest J. Nowak. Coming at you live. Alright. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome to the final ever episode of Honest J. Nowak Graphix. So, pretty much speaking, starting tomorrow, it's going to be regular HJN all over again. At least I'll go as far to say that it's been a pretty wild ride talking about various video games and really spending a lot of time with some HJN quality work. But time to basically talk about the last ever game I'll have for this. And you know what? If you've been following along on the whole entire thing, then you'll know it is something that's been done in late 2020 by Square Enix, which I've considered to probably be the most popular gaming company on the PlayStation 4, because there are so many franchises on the system alone, and so many games from that franchise selection that Square Enix has basically given us after all these years that, again, I mean, I consider Square Enix to be the top-notch gaming, well, provider out there in comparison to a lot of other companies. So, Final Fantasy VII Remake is what I picked to end all of this. And I tell you, this is a pretty good time to do so, because guess what? I've been talking about it so many times throughout the series. I practically spoiled a lot of detail, but now's the time where I could probably talk about it in full without having to worry about a lot of spoilers, because at this point, it's fair to say a lot of people might have played it by this point. I, of course, got my name added to the list as far back as this past August in 2021, so not that long ago, but also not too recent. Because with a lot of games that I'm currently playing out there, including Infamous Second Son, Get Real, or it's probably called Get Even, as well as Ghost Runner and Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, although pretty soon I'll also be trying out some other soon-to-be PS5 titles out there like Hot Wheels Unleashed and It Takes Two, pretty much. Maybe Mass Effect Legendary Edition if I get the chance to do so. But another game that will be soon upgraded to a PlayStation 5 version is Final Fantasy VII Remake, a late 2020 entry into the Final Fantasy series that basically remakes the amazing legendary storyline of the original Final Fantasy VII from 1997. So 23 years it took for them to remake it. And I really gotta say, of all remakes I might have ever considered when it comes to all sorts of games out there, in the world of gaming, remakes are not necessarily too common in contrast to what we've been seeing in the movie business itself. The film industry has chock fulls of entire loads worth of remakes of all sorts, or reboots depending on what your preference is for that sort of terminology. But of all games that have been considered remakes, especially by a literal standpoint, I've told about Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 3 Remake, and how impressive they both are. Of course, Resident Evil 2 Remake is going to be way better than 3, because 3 does have a few things that sort of offset it from many of the others, and disappoints some people out there, but that's not really to worry, because the same exact year that Resident Evil 3 Remake came out, there came Final Fantasy VII Remake. Except it was a few months later. But I will say for sure that Final Fantasy VII Remake is literally awesome. The fact that I actually played this game after I did my top 20 best PS4 games countdown video on YouTube, it really almost makes me think that maybe I could probably do a revised version of the top 20 best PS4 games countdown video, or maybe even better, I could probably make another top 20 best PS4 games I've ever played. That could probably be a countdown video idea for another day, but until then, I got plenty of other ideas I could do for countdowns, and as a result, I'm not necessarily going to waste my time with a lot of things. Final Fantasy VII Remake is what you think it is. It's the legendary story of Cloud Strife, a gigantic sword, and a pretty impressive, cunning, espionage-like attitude, whom basically teams up with a group called Avalanche. They're a militia-type group whom are thought to be a terrorist organization, as they all go inside of the world of Midgar And Midgar itself is a city that is powered by a certain energy source known as Mako. And Mako is in fact seen by Avalanche as a huge, hasty, and awful way of gathering life's biggest resources. So to combat against all that, they fight through the extreme amounts of soldiers that are in their way and eventually blow up one of the city's many reactors that are in fact capable of hauling Mako to various parts of the entire city of Midgar. And all through the many different sectors that they go through, the many different reactors they try to find and destroy as a way to bring Midgar back to its original set, gives a lot of sort of insights for the Mako creators as well as the entire company of Shinra to basically find out how to basically defeat them. But upon doing so, there are in fact a lot of things that you might as well get to know about the characters themselves. Not including Cloud Strife within the Avalanche organization, you basically also have Barrett, Tifa, Jesse, and you even got yourself the almighty Wedge. So, it basically comes down to a point where you do have a nice selection of different characters to choose from. You mainly play as Cloud Strife, but you can optionally switch these different characters as you progress through the really long story that is at least 20 to 30 hours in length, which is pretty average for most Final Fantasy level games. It's certainly a nice suitable length if you're really wanting to go for as long as you could possibly go through. But I will go as far to point out that other than the sort of storyline that unfolds and the unique past that we get to find about Cloud Strife, especially when it comes to Strife being a soldier, yeah, literally, there's an organization in the game canonically that's referred to as Soldier, with all caps, pretty much. So other than all that good stuff that you can get to hear about the storyline, there's a variety of other things that you pretty much have in mind that makes this game absolutely amazingly well done. For a Square Enix title from 2020, in contrast to what we've seen from other Square Enix titles from 2020, and maybe even other games that we've seen throughout 2020, this game really has a lot of potential when it comes to what we could potentially see in the future of gaming in amongst all cases we've ever had. So, by all means, I'm more than willing to call this maybe the best of the best from 2020. But yet, there are a few others out there that are very competitive. So, again, there's tons of 2020 picks out there that are way too good to ignore. 2020 was just that good of a year. For the variety of games that it had, for the variety of great films that it had released, even though theaters were not even open throughout most of the entire year, and even with tons of other things that were not even open throughout most of the year, it was beyond enjoyable for a lot of the things that we actually managed to get out of it. The movies, the video games, the novels, and let's also not forget the many bad examples of human beings. Well, I should stop saying beings now, because it's okay to say humans. I'm not an alien, okay? But anyways, you know what? 2020 was just too darn good. I will never forget such a good year like this. And I will definitely not forget about how bad of a year 2021 is. Like, my gosh. When are people ever going to say 2021 is the worst year ever? When? When's that ever going to happen? My gosh. But you know what though? Final Fantasy VII Remake, no matter how many times you look at it, no matter how much you try to compare it to the original from 1997, over 20 years prior and only made as a PlayStation 1 game, but also being one of the longest PlayStation 1 games to ever exist, having a somewhat similar time frame from very start to the very finish. But you know what though? There's always that special thing about the remakes that just makes them look better and even feel better by all means. Because first of all, there actually are several different odd notches that you can find within the remake that really point out to the original, not just in a minor way. First of all, there are instances in the game where you can collect different records. If you explore certain areas and come across different shops and other related venues, then there are certain parts of the original FF7 soundtrack that you can hear in the background. And you do have the option to go to these vendors and purchase a copy of the record from them, which of course will allow you to utilize a record player and play any of these known tracks from the original game as you might like. There actually is a point in the game where you'd have to cycle through all different sorts of FF7 original soundtrack related records to find out which would be the most entertaining, pretty much. But for my playthrough, I never quite found even one that would be suitable enough for the entire city of Midgar to pretty much keep their guard up. But I really do have to say though, the storyline is just simply amazing. The many twists and turns that take place, the lots of different things that take place within the main protagonist class, and with the main character supposedly being just a combination of Cloud, Tifa, Barret, and Aerith, whom of course is known to be an ancient being, and only one that certainly exists up until this very point. Aerith does actually get captured at some point, pretty much. Held on by somebody known as Professor Hojo. Hojo! What? All he said was Hojo! Hojo! Oh, come on. The freaking Howard Johnson stuff. Really? Come on, man. AVGN did a whole episode on this stuff at one point. That's how bad this is. I can't even say Professor Hojo. Hojo! Like, oh my gosh. Like, you know what? Never mind, okay? I will say otherwise than all of these things that I pretty much mentioned, and not to mention a pretty spectacular voice cast with the likes of familiar names like John DiMaggio and James Horan, and other than the amazing insights of action and graphical enhancements when compared to the original, FF7 Remake is beyond amazing. Probably the best part though that I will want to highlight though before I close off on this whole entire thing though, is that FF7 gives us a very amazing scene. There's a part where a guy named Don Corneo basically comes along and captures Tifa. And it's up to Aerith and Cloud to basically go rescue Tifa by entering in a spouse sort of contest. And to do so, they have to win an award over at the local fighting tournament pretty much, which is situated underground. Upon winning this tournament, both Cloud and Aerith are given specialized permission to go to certain locations here and there to get some enhancements done with their bodies and all that good stuff, and to eventually get some amazing makeovers. There's even a part where it almost acts like the many things relating to Wii, PlayStation Move, and Xbox Kinect, where you literally have to time the buttons pretty much, almost like a point-and-click game. But this is in fact at a part where a scene that shows Cloud dancing with a small group inside of a hotel which is themed to be like a beehive pretty much. But in the end, believe it or not, they give us probably the most beautiful little ending possible. A nice way to represent transvesticism in today's society. They literally put Cloud in a dress. Wow, like when I saw that for the first time, I was absolutely like, I literally cried from tears of joy. I was just that surprised and that, oh my gosh, like that right there is freaking amazing. No doubt about it. Cloud is a transvestite. Wow. Like, I myself, a high quality LGBTQ plus supporter, did not see this coming. Man. Like, I really wish I could play through the whole entire game again just to comprehend everything else, because from blowing up reactors, to taking down all sorts of ginormous bosses, to facing off against the many antagonists that you fight throughout the game, including President Shinra, Heidegger, whom of course I did realize was voiced by John DiMaggio. How could you get away from that distinct sort of gnarly larynx pretty much? And of course, Professor freaking Hojo. Oh my gosh. That's 4 times I've said it now. Man, do I really like Hojo that much? well, anyways, the game is just amazing. Go ahead and play it for yourself. If you were able to get it as a PlayStation Plus download like I did, then you are amazing at it. I really want to have you as a friend and as a buddy to play with in FF7 Remake. Literally talk about it in the comment section below with me, or maybe as a Twitter DM or an Instagram private message, pretty much. But otherwise, you know what? That's it. That's Honest J Nowak Graphix for you. And starting tomorrow, I will have new HJN material to work with, but it will not, in fact, be for graphics or maybe video games of all sorts of things. There could be a time where I might actually want to create a second series relating to video games here on HJN, but until that idea comes into place, I will unfortunately have to say that this is pretty much all you get. If you're expecting certain other titles, then you're probably out of luck. But if you want to see more go down to my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.